I'm Robert Bell, and we're here with WTA members, friends, and colleagues at the IBC 2014 show, looking at the vast changes taking place in the media and entertainment industry and how those are going to shape the future for teleport operators worldwide.
We've noticed a significant increase in interest from our customers over the past 12 months since last IBC regarding the 4K. It's caused by a number of realities in the market. I think the ecosystem of the technology, it's really coming together. On the encoding side, on the decoding side, I think we're still lacking a little bit on some of the production technologies and ability to move the uncompressed 4K in the production environment. The penetration of 4K TVs with the consumers is also increasing on the global scale. So the pieces, the technology pieces are coming together. And what we've noticed from the conversations with customers as well as from the survey that we just did with our customers is that increasingly it's not about a technology, but the question is about a business model and how we can make 4K a successful business. For the survey that we've done with our customers, there were a couple of interesting little nuggets of information that we found out that are kind of different from the mainstream coverage of the 4K. One is the discrepancy in the opinion about a 4K future, depending on the functional responsibilities of the respondents. So, we'll see a lot of operations and technical folks, pushing more towards the VOD deployment. And I think the reason why is because it's easier to do that versus the development of linear channel is much more complex. While the business executives are actually looking at linear channels and the channel differentiation, brand differentiation, customer retention, as the main drivers for the 4K. So, I think, the way the 4K is going to roll out is going to be yearly similar to how the how the HD evolved initially from the SD, where there's going to be a small number of channels, differentiated channels, higher tier, that will address the smaller part of the consumers and for which you're going to have to pay extra. Because if you remember when the HD rolled out initially, there was typically, and in many cases there is still a premium, subscription premium that the consumers have to pay for the HD. There's a little bit of a chicken and egg argument here, right? A lot of the programmers are saying, well, we need to see the business case, before deciding to invest heavily into the 4K and the production and so on. But at the same time, the consumers are saying, well, why should I be investing in all the gear and the 4K gear if I don't have any content to watch? So encouragingly, we've seen a number of programmers that are actually beginning to master their production in the 4K to future-proof themselves and be able to start putting together a full-time linear channels that are in the 4K. But it's really a content availability, which is the first step for the 4K to really gain a wider acceptance with the consumers. I think another really important thing that very often it's omitted in the conversations about a 4K is the ability for us, and us meaning the entire ecosystem industry, to sell the 4K as a superior product. And making sure that the customers appreciate the difference in the 4K, not only from the perspective of resolution, because there's more than resolution. It's about a superior audio, it's about a superior color saturation on the screen, a very immersive experience that also means a closer viewing distance from the TV. So there are still, I think, a lot of the little nuances that need to be promoted to the end users, and the end users need to be educated to really appreciate the difference with the 4K, and that will lead to the increased ability and willingness to pay for the 4K services, because at the end of the day, the advertising by itself will not really pay for the 4K. There's got to be some kind of a subscription business model to make it successful. Right. So obviously, Ultra HD is a next natural growth area for the satellite companies. It today requires probably, depending on what do you compare this to as a basis, and what kind of a 4K UHD stream we're talking about, as far as the bit rate, the frame rate, the color saturation, but roughly it's about 4 times of the bandwidth that's required today to transmit the regular 1080p HD. Now, when you marry that together with the advancement in the compression technology with the HEVC, which cuts the bandwidth by about a half, what that means is that average HD channel will probably need about 2 to 3 times as much bandwidth in the future as HD does today. So it's a great opportunity for the satellite industry to really see some additional growth in distribution and primary distribution in the DTH business. And I think, as an operator of the global fleet with over 50 satellites around, we really prepared and scale, to allow our customers to grow, gradually into the 4K. So, that's the reason why we are very much involved in developing the ecosystem and doing a lot of demo to prove that the satellite bandwidth, as it exists today, can already support the 4K, because we see this as a real growth engine in the near and the far future for Intelsat. So, we firmly believe that there is a market for the 4K, and it's not going to be another technology, just looking for the consumers. I think from everything that you see on the demos, it is a very different experience. It's very immersive. Now, I think where the question, comes is this something that's going to have a mass market, or is it really a niche market? Personally, I believe that this is going to be probably a premium tier of the services, at least initially, which quite frankly is not any different to what HD launched as, right? And one can argue that even today, HD, it's not really a mass market, even in the developed markets, right? In the developing markets, majority of the transmission is still done in SD. Arguably, a lot of the transmission is still done back in analog, right? So this points to another, fragmentation of the marketplace, right? Where, in the future you will have SD, HD, and UHD version. Now, is everything going to be in the UHD? Probably not. I think, a lot of the sports channels, the movie channels, where, that quality is really, makes a big difference, and where there's a propensity for the consumers to pay premium for that content, that's what's going to be a sweet spot for the UHD 4K.